Well, Chris, thank you very much for setting aside some time here to chat on a beautiful Chicago day. We don't get a lot of those, but it's nice here. You're just outside of Chicago, right? In the Lamont area, right?
Yeah, we're in Bolingbrook today. So we just moved not too long ago out of Lamont. But yeah, it is gorgeous side. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on. I love doing this podcast because I talk to a lot of founders of companies that are, not like traditional companies, kind of niche industries or just niche businesses. And so, actually, somebody who I know pretty well that lives in the Lamont area was pretty familiar with your company and your guys' products, and he actually recommended that I reach out to you. And as soon as I came across your website and started digging into your story a little bit, I thought it'd be perfect for us to chat. So maybe that's the best place to start, is kind of like the quick kind of origin story for you and your wife, your co-founder of the company, and kind of how you guys got started. And there's all sorts of parts of your story that I'll probably want to dig into a little bit. But what's kind of like the quick origin story for you guys and for Spira Farms?
Yeah. So Spira Farms has been officially in operation since 2020. It's a little bit of a COVID baby, but it kind of started before that. In a few different ways, the idea kind of got put together. I was doing my master's at the time. I'm a data analyst, data scientist. By trade, that's what I was trained to do. And one of the topics I was kind of looking into was the carbon emissions that an individual can put out into the world. Part of that made me realize there's a lot that's going on with food chain in particular. So if you buy a head of lettuce, it's probably going to come in from California. The vast majority of them do. Maybe less so these days, but at least at the time, there was a lot of it. Just the nature of you go to the grocery store, you don't feel like you're putting out that many emissions out into the world, but it's coming in from somewhere. There's a lot of trucking emissions that go out. So doing a little bit of that research kind of inspired this idea of what if I just grow some greens at home? We live in a condo, so it's the 4th or 5th floor, but I had nice windows, I had balconies for it, so I gave it a shot. And I came across a book that educated me on what I didn't know what they were called microgreens at the time, but it was just growing little baby plants in aluminum baking foil pans. Just very basic, such little setup. It was very, very simple, which I ended up doing. And I ended up every single day I was kind of planting these greens and harvesting them, because they grow in 7 days. They grow really, really quickly. And you could do it in a condo. Anyone can do this thing. It's very cheap, and it's just a really easy way to get nice greens in you. Over time, this is around 2018 period, I did this for a period of time, and it worked. We were growing greens for ourselves every single day. It was a little bit of a messy process. Hard to have dirt in a condo on the 4th floor, but we made it work. And over time, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2018, and we were still doing this process with our little microgreens at home for ourselves, my wife and I. My mom got diagnosed with cancer, and anxiety. I was looking into okay, what do we do here? What do you solve for this? How can I contribute? Because you're kind of helpless in a way. Mm-hmm. You're just sitting there dependent on the hospital system, and they do great work. They do a lot of great things for us, but I wanted to contribute in some way. There's always more, just to give us our best chances. And at the time I was looking at nutrition, because that to me was one of the takeaways when you're meeting with doctors. Nutrition and being healthy is one of the things. So I looked into nutrition, and I ended up going down a rabbit hole of microgreens, and I was realizing this is what I'm doing. I didn't realize the health benefits of what we were actually providing. I knew that it was healthy because it was fresh and this and that, mm-hmm. but it was just it was arbitrary. There weren't numbers behind it. It wasn't quantified. It was just qualitative. These are greens. This is good for you. So when you do a little bit of research on microgreens, and we were actually growing the ones that we wanted to. It was broccoli as an example. Mm-hmm. There's two standout things that come with broccoli. One is eating microgreens. Eating 1 ounce of them is like eating 3 to 6 pounds of the adult plant. So it's you can eat a little to get a lot of nutritional output out of it. And they're small plants, so it's really easy to use. You're putting broccoli in a sandwich compared to like you have to do some processing with a dull-headed broccoli. The second thing is there's this thing called sulforaphane in cruciferous plants. Cruciferous plants, broccoli is one of them. But that family, it's arugula, it's mustard, kohlrabi, kale, cabbage. All these plants are in that family. They will have trace amounts of sulforaphane, but broccoli in particular is going to have by far the most of it. And there's a lot of emerging research that's popping up for what sulforaphane does for preventing and fighting cancers. That was we should probably be feeding this to our entire family kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we started our little operation in our condo, and I actually moved it over to my parents' basement, so that way we always had a fresh supply for them at all times. And we were just growing it for us. Really, it's really simple to start up. I had some business mind for because I wanted to do something. I didn't know this was going to be it, but I wanted to do something. But you can just buy like a rack, which is like one of those Costco wire shelvings. So you have 5 shelves on it. You buy these trays. They're called 10-20 trays, which are 10-inch by 20-inch trays. You just put dirt in there, and you can grow microgreens at home. And it was growing it for ourselves, but it ended up friends and family wanted it, and you can end up starting a little business off it. Many people do this. So it's a little bit of how Spira Farms started. It came from like our core values came from that sustainability, in that we wanted to, you can eliminate a lot of supply chain issues like the carbon emissions out into the world, and you get a fresher product too. So Spira Farms is a culmination of nutrition and sustainability, and there's a lot of different things that we do to kind of enhance those things. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting that you kind of already had the background in sustainability and the, pursuing sort of carbon neutrality and sort of the sustainable side of it. And then it sounds like by sort of chance, you discovered the sort of extreme like nutrition that you can get from those. Because I think I read one time a while ago that like microgreens are, like pound for pound, the most like nutrient dense thing maybe on the planet. I don't know. It was a claim that was like, just like a very interesting claim about, you see like kind of microgreens on like a sandwich or a salad or something. And I think the average person doesn't probably think too much about that. It almost looks like a garnish, but it's kind of interesting when you dig into a little bit, how much, like you said, how much nutrition can be sort of packed into a very small package.
Yeah. It's so to unpack that a little bit. Nutrition, people often like when we're looking at nutrition, it's also like you're looking at nutrition facts and label, and it's predominantly like here's your protein, here's your carbs, sugars, things like that. It's pretty high level. When we're talking about microgreens, we're focused on vitamins A, E, C, K. There are other antioxidants. You can dissect it even further. There's like humans only really keep track of about 192 micronutrients. I guess is the right macronutrients. When there's about 26,000 we actually do need. So like we were not really looking at the whole picture of things. So like when people say things like there's a lot of like nutrition, these things, it's like you are not going to eat this to get the calories you need for the day, but your body does need these things to repair itself, like your cells and such. They need vitamins A, E, C, and K, and the sulforaphane. All these things contribute to our overall health. So like if you want to compare it to like, I don't know, rice or something, there's so many more calories in rice. So you can survive off that. Potatoes, you can actually survive off that. It's a very well-rounded plant. Not that you want to, but if you had to choose one food to eat, potatoes would be wonderful. But usually, they always say like you want to have a colorful diet that's a mix of a variety of different things. It's for this reason alone, because different foods are better at different things. So it gets so technical. It's so challenging marketing wise to explain this concept of farmers markets. Some people know, some people don't know. I know X amount. Humankind knows very little today. Like there's only so much research out there. We're really starting to get like deeper into these topics in the last decades, from what I've seen. So it's hard.
Especially when a lot of clients that I work with and just companies that I come across that, I mean, there often is a challenge of you're doing a fair amount of just education for like first, like before you can do any kind of like quote unquote regular marketing. Like you have to, make sure that if you're trying to attract the, sort of average consumer. They might not, be, as versed in the science and the in the weeds on that stuff, but finding the right balance of just like quickly educating them on the most important stuff. Like you said, at a farmer's market, you might only have a quick interaction with somebody. Like, how do you dial in that, sort of little elevator pitch for your product? And I definitely want to get in that more, but I'm actually curious, like when you were kind of just starting out and you were making the stuff for, family and friends, and it wasn't sort of, I'm guessing at that time, it wasn't really a full sort of business plan. It was something you kind of grew into, pun intended, I guess. So like, what did that look like in those really early days? First of all, did you have a full-time job, or were you still like in school at the time, or like what were you doing while this was a fledgling of just like the idea of a business, but not quite something that was, full-time?
Yeah, there was a lot of growth in that period. It's still happening today. So back then, yes, I worked full time. This was a weekend thing for a very, very long time, for a year or two, I guess. Suppose we're about year 5 right now. I was working full time. I was doing my master's at the time. It was also, you're dealing with cancer. You're dealing with all kinds of things. You're in the hospital a lot. There's surgeries, there's chemos, there's radiations, and we went through all of that hell for years and years and years. And then there's this thing. So with produce is not an easy game. It's actually one of the hardest games to play. And is what I hear. It's like one of the things in business I hear is like, just don't be a produce farmer, because it's hard. You're not only dealing with a product that you have to take care of every single day, you have to expire that product in a rather short period of time as well. And microgreens, fortunately, and being local, you've got about a 2-week shelf life after you harvest it, and that could be a couple hours if you don't do it well, or it can be 2 weeks if you get good at it. It was hard. We had a lot of different things going on at the same time. So in the early days, I was working. I was commuting. Fortunately, my commute was local. I didn't have to go too far. But my mom helped me with a lot of those things, and I was very fortunate, because that was part of. I wanted to make sure that we had produce for her, but I also wanted to make sure that it would be taken care of. So moving our little farm thing that we had going on to her space was a little blessing, because it was just little things like, can you just water it? Just little things like that. At the time, it was very manual, because it just wasn't there all the time. And then after about a year into it, the way we kind of operated, because this was a weekend thing, it was like I would do a little bit of marketing, I would make some sales. It was just to people's houses. It really wasn't anything significant at the time. This was very, very humble beginnings. I would do all the deliveries on Saturday morning. So I would get home from work on Fridays, you'd harvest everything, and then on Saturday mornings we just do our deliveries. And our business kind of evolved in that way. In that I did farmers markets on Saturdays and Sundays as well. So that unlocked a lot of more things for us. Over time, my wife ended up jumping a lot more as cancer progressed with my mom. She wasn't always able to help out so much. She helped out so much, tremendous amount. But if I'm at a farmer's market, my wife would help with deliveries and things. So my wife naturally just came in and started picking up the role. It was kind of like these things kind of fell into place for the both of us. Neither one of us expected to get into farming, especially I don't think she did, but I'm very blessed that she was able to jump in and help with these things. This business would not exist without her help. I couldn't do 2 things at once, as a basic example. So there was just so much going on at the time. I remember just doing my master's during all this as well. I'm writing papers. I had to write 2 or 3 papers a week, and they weren't short form papers. There's always that the thing about the education is like you have to write a 5-page paper, and sometimes they're not always the greatest content. So you're just kind of you're just making through it. It ate up a lot of time, ate up a lot of bandwidth. So during this period of time, it was a tremendous amount of growth, because of the discipline that we had to get from it. That was huge for us. That we went through a period of extreme pain. There was just so many different things happening. It played with your emotions, with the health.
Yeah.
And I look back on those days. It's almost it's they were really challenging, but finally in that like we grew so much into who we are today from that period of time. Like there was just so much pain. Like we very, very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But we kept
Yeah.
going with it. We just never quit.
Yeah.
That's that is a lot of how we started and evolved. It was just there was so much going on. There's no time for social life. There was just a group, like we were kind of a close-knit, tight-knit group
Yep.
of my mom, my dad helped out quite a bit, and my wife and I, and we just
Mm-hmm.
we built this thing.
Yeah.
A lot of that continues to today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many companies that think back in the exact same way very fondly of starting in a garage or a basement or a kitchen, and that scrappy, like, not really startup mentality, but that just scrappy, like early stage, uh, way of just, you know, working all day, all night. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're making mistakes left and right, but but you're learning from them, and then at some point you kind of think back and you go, oh, that was kind of a while ago, even though it maybe doesn't seem that long ago, and so that's part of it too, of like, sort of like with some companies, that just nostalgic aspect of it, and in a lot of ways you have to like almost get back to your roots sometimes, with whether it's like marketing or sales or growing the business from like a brand. Like my background is obviously marketing and branding, so thinking of, like you said, those early days that kind of define you, that's what you want to think back on, and actually not lose some of that like grit and determination and scrappiness, because that's a good thing to hold on to if you can. During those early days, did you, or actually even before that, did you have a sort of entrepreneurial like itch that you were looking to scratch? Was that something that you were interested in? Do you always kind of want to pursue it? And then actually, but like part two of that question is, did you have specific aspects of, there's romantic ideas of starting businesses, and people think that's like a very sexy thing. Like, were there aspects of it that you really were kind of more into? Is it the marketing? Is it the sales? Is it the product? Is it like what parts of it do you think you were drawn to?
Yeah. I'll start with the second question. In that I definitely romanticized it a little bit. The idea of a business, there wasn't any particular part that I really focused on. I just thought this would be so cool to build something. That was it. It was very, very ill-defined at the time. In reflection, if I look back at like who I was before, there were some signals, and actually speaking with one of my childhood best friends about it, he kind of knew that this was something that a route that I would take. There's something in my nature that I always wanted to build something. It started with Legos. I would have this Legos. If you look way back, it's kind of started with there. I
Yeah.
love building things. To when we would play, like I used to be competitive with gaming. Like I was a PC gamer, so a lot of like play World of Warcraft and StarCraft, these kind of things. I was always trying to like build the group and make. If you're familiar with it, you have to have a lot of people to you build your team up to go do whatever it is you're doing in a lot of these games. And I was I always wanted to lead that for no arbitrary reason. That maybe I'm a little bit of a dictator in that way, but I wanted to. It was just the nature. I don't have a reasoning for it. It's maybe emotional, but I just always liked that. In the past, I guess when I was a kid, I was shoveling driveways. There was a little bit of that, and I would go out on a shovel with my buddies, and that's what we did. And we just wanted to make money. It was fun. It's fun to earn a little bit. As I before and during my college years, and maybe a little bit after, before this business started, I was looking for something. I didn't know what. I didn't know who I was or what. I didn't have the discipline. There was this itch that I couldn't scratch, and a lot of it was that's part of why I was trying to be a kind of gamer, because I was working full time, but I was also I spent a lot of time. I would research. I'd watch competitive games, and I would practice. Like, it was 8 hours. That was a full-time job for me. I would practice quite a lot, and I played a lot. I don't know if I ever got any good at them, but I did it quite a bit. I tried before when I got my job, I was trying to build phone apps or something, because that was the emergent thing. I was like, hey, I took my wife, like, let's try to build something. Let's learn how to do, like, we downloaded Android Studio. Let's just learn how to do this thing. Didn't work. It was too, like, I didn't have an idea in mind. I didn't have a project in mind. So it was challenging to code something when you have, like, what are we doing here? You're just kind of learning for the sake of learning. I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with it in school as well. I struggled at mathematics a lot throughout my entire life. I struggled at mathematics, and that's the field I ended up going into, was statistics. Through data analysis and being a data scientist today, you're building models and machine learning models and such. It's all just statistics. But once you apply it to something, once I had a problem to solve, suddenly it kind of unlocked everything for me. I was like, I wanted to learn to code, and I have a problem to solve that you code for. So, like, a lot to unpack there, but it was I just in reflection, I had these little things that I realized, like, kind of over time built into, like, where I am today. So there was some entrepreneur in there. I didn't know what it looked like or what I was looking for, but I think I found it.
Yeah.
I love what I do.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing I hear, is that it's something that I think when you look back and you reflect, you're like, oh, that kind of always was there, although maybe at the time it wasn't this, like, screaming urge to, like, go out and start a business. But there were, like, you look back and you're like, okay, there were signs that that maybe I'd be pursuing this. Did you have anybody in your world, family, friends, just people that you knew that were also kind of in that world, in the entrepreneurial space, starting businesses, starting companies, or just being entrepreneurial in some way? And I don't mean like a mentor, but just people that were also doing that you could kind of see, maybe even from a distance, just kind of roughly the playbook that they were running, of, like, how they were doing it. Did you have that, or were you kind of, when you decided to pursue this, was it just like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go figure it out?
Definitely the latter.
Okay.
I definitely, my family is probably a lot of where who I am today comes from, in that they're Polish immigrants. They came into the United States, kind of moving away from the communism of the Soviet Union and those kind of things. And we tend to be pretty, like, I noticed that we're not really great planners. We're not we just kind of, you just try things and you iterate until you nail it. But I've watched throughout my life, like, I think my dad, he does have his own business. He's a dental technician, so he worked at Northwestern for a period of time, and the dental school there closed down. I think it was the biggest in the world at the time. This was, I think, in the 90s, and he ended up taking that work home. Like, he had a side thing where he had his own little lab. Like, our basement to this day for the last 30 years has been a dental lab. But he had a side thing while he's working at Northwestern. He also had a lab in the basement. So eventually that just turned into his kind of full-time gig, and he just worked on that. So the people who he worked with at Northwestern, the network he had there, he ended up working with to this day. So I had a little bit of that entrepreneurship there. I've also watched as, like, my dad and uncle, part of what they did when they moved here is they bought a apartment building together. And they learned how to take care of that apartment building together, because that's where they lived. They lived and they rented out a few units as well. That was their home. And so you kind of watch the spirit that I think I carry on today is we're super scrappy, and we're going to figure out a cost-effective way to solve a problem. It creates this creative ideation where, like, I have all these problems today that require, I could throw a lot of money in it. That money that doesn't exist. But we have to solve for it today. We find ways. We find ways to make it work. We have done everything that Spira Farms is today. We have built ourselves. We haven't really taken in outside consulting. We educate ourselves, probably to a fault. We have to learn. I've had to learn new professions. My wife is basically an accountant now, and I'm basically a full-time developer now. in a lot of ways, to make this farm work. I don't know anything about HVAC, but I had to, because you have to build a climate controlled room. Like you learn all these really, really cool skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think us learning those skill sets, that a lot of that spirit came from like just observing throughout my life, my family, and how they just tinker and just figure it out. You know, we've never been the kind of group that just like you hire it out and they'll figure it out for you, but and maybe it's a dependency issue. You don't want to have to depend on someone else. You want to be able to figure it out on your own. There are times you have to get help, but if we can, we will always try to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking in terms of like your story and the story of the company, because and I always find that I'm like talking to almost like two different types of founders. There's like a founder who just had an idea for business, a problem they were going to solve. You know, they followed the quote unquote, traditional like steps of, okay, business plan. We're going to go figure out this, figure out that. And then there's the other businesses that start very gradual. Like you said earlier, you were creating a bunch of products for your family, for friends, and then it sounded like it sort of gradually grew. Was there a moment, was there or just a period of time where you said, okay, this is growing into something a little bit bigger and we might have to switch, turn on the switch of like what you just talked about. Okay, I'm going to have to like put a bunch of structure around this. I'm going to have to learn how to do this one day, this another day, to kind of grow this into something. And I'm not sure if you even had like the vision exactly for what you were going to grow it into, but I'm guessing there was a point in time where you said, okay, let's figure out how we might turn this into something bigger. How did that process go? Was there a moment, or was it just like, again, gradually over time?
There were many moments for me, because we jump into this line of work and you think you find product market fit, and you do in a lot of ways, but does it scale? And the challenging part we had was there are times where like the concepts do work, but is it big enough for you? Like we could have grown the business in a certain direction, but you hit a wall where it becomes very, very challenging. Is it enough to make a living off of? Is it to make the living that you want off of it? Probably not. In a lot of ways, we're manufacturers today, but back in the day, we never saw ourselves as this. We were cutting some microgreens, we drop it off to people's houses. We ended up in a very D2C model, and for a local community D2C model. That's really hard for produce. The margins were so narrow. You're delivering to people. You have to hire drivers and stuff. You hit a wall. So we've had to not even sure the right word for it, but reinvent the business multiple times in the way we think about it, just because of the nature of what we do. So our initial model was D2C. Like I mentioned, we just harvest and deliver to people's houses via farmers markets. It ended up, we got into a few grocery stores. It was kind of like that. We eventually at some point moved out of the basement. I think we were there for about a year and a half where we started hitting constraints. Like I mentioned, you have to know HVAC. I knew nothing about HVAC. I was in a space and we're just growing more and more and more. And I was blowing fuses constantly because you needed more electricity. And I started automation just to make sure I was still working full time, so that I needed to have watering take place on there. So I had pumps and to water all the shelves and all these things. I was blowing fuses. Winter hit. I'm in a small basement with lots of water, humidity in there. You needed heat. So like the windows started having problems because, outside is cold, inside is warm. We hit our constraints there. So we moved into Lamont, and we were there for, I think about 2.5 years. I forget the timeline, but it's somewhere in that range. Took an office building, and it felt like the biggest thing in the world for us. We went from about 800 square feet to run this entire business to about 2,000. It was ginormous. It was something we had. Oh, we have a grow room now. It's focused just for growing. And then we have a production area. So you have the plants. You have to actually the process of building like our trays where we grow everything, and you have to harvest these things. We have a dedicated area for it. Before it was just this mess of all in one tiny space. We had a small little office, and we had a room for refrigeration, like a dedicated room for these kind of things. in that space, it opened up our how we can actually what this business could be, because ultimately we have a factory where we have this way to grow product. Who wants it? It really doesn't matter so much. So the way the form factor of the business kind of adjusted. So we were in a small little downtown area. It was downtown Lemont. So our idea was, well, what if we could turn this into like some kind of deli style thing, where like delis, you go in, they cut the meat for you fresh off the thing. We could do the same thing with microgreens. I still think the idea is great, but it didn't work. We tried it for such a long time, but it just people don't go to that area. I think for produce, you go in there to have a beer predominantly. So it probably wasn't the right product market fit. But we did try that for a period of time, and then we continued growing the home delivery services in the new space. We were fortunate in that space to also get into a few more grocery stores. I started seeing the culinary side of things, so I started posting a little bit on Facebook groups. Lemont has a pretty solid Facebook group, and a lot of cities do. I think most cities do have some kind of Facebook group. I started posting, hey, I grow microgreens. Anybody want it? That kind of thing. Here's my website. And it caught the attention of a few chefs, which was really fortunate for me, because I started opening up doors. I no the culinary I don't know anything about. So I would deliver product to them. They thought it's great. That I felt great. And you start building a rapport, and you start learning a lot of that culture, because I still, and 5 years into it now, there's still so much for me to learn as we start looking working with different kinds of chefs over time. And we just got lucky and started meeting the right people, and in a world that actually cared a lot more about these things. They knew what the product was. And microgreens aren't, they're newer, but newer in the last 50 years. So the culinary world saw these things first, and they were more cultured for it. Yeah. So that's a lot of, I started realizing that seemed like a good idea to probably venture into that world quite a bit. And then I had another opportunity come up. I mentioned grocery stores earlier. The way grocery stores kind of happened for us is there was somebody else like me in the area. I think they were in Lockport, like a neighboring city, and they were trying to get out of the microgreens game. And we were at the point we were growing into it. We just got into a new space in Lamont. I was like, all right, we're looking for more opportunities. I've got room. Let's try to expand this business. And he was at the time selling his business. It was really small deal. Like, it was like he had a shelf growing microgreens, just like the same starting I had. It was the same other way, but he was smart enough to walk into a grocery store and meet the produce manager. Something that I was honestly, it's just fearful. I'm a keyboard warrior, and I'll sit on the computer and code all day, but going to meet people like that, it's not me. So it opened the door for me to as I bought his business, he did it was a nice warm transfer to me. I was like, oh, these are just people. I can just walk in and talk to them, see if they're interested or not. It's just you start building up an idea of what sales looks like in this world. So we started in our Lemont space. We really started learning what scale will look like for this business a little bit more. Because the home delivery, we were delivering to 200 customers a week, to homes a week, and it started getting really challenging, because you if you want to expand to a new region or area, you have a chicken or egg problem. You have if I want to go to this city, that city is far away, and there's nobody there, and the zip codes in this city it's 40 minutes from one side to another. There's a lot of examples of this. So if I open up that region, I have to get a lot of customers there, or I'm losing money until we get a lot of customers there. So Lemont was great because it was a small city, and people like the idea. They're still very receptive to it today. And so it was really easy to kind of grow there. But as you expand, we're going to talk about Frankfurt, which is it's touching farmland. So it's a really, really wide city. We ran into some home delivery constraints there, because it was I got one customer there, and you try for half a year. I still have one customer there. We probably should shut this down, at least that city down. And a lot of things like that happened. It became really, really hard to scale and getting in front of the right people. Areas where I was in farmers markets, like Lemont was one. You meet a lot of people. Naperville is another one for us. You meet a lot of people, and you grow your service there through that. But that's a lot of boots on the ground. It's really, really hard work to do that. So we kind of, learning the grocery store, learning a little bit of the culinary, we started pivoting our business in Lemont to should probably focus on those two things in particular. It's the margins are much easier. You're not making pennies off a single drop off, because produce is, people expect it to be cheap for a lot of reasons. So you're trying to keep it as low as possible. And you're dropping off small amounts of it to one stop. Whereas grocery stores and restaurants, it's larger drop-offs of product. So it's margin-wise, the economics just made far more sense to scale up the business. And then near the end of our time in Lamont, we started. We got so lucky. Business is just luck. I'm convinced. We were just very, very lucky in that our literal neighbor at our Lamont location, he had just moved in there. He was a produce buyer for a distributor, and it just started opening up a world to us that was like, oh, that's great. You drop off a lot of stuff to one place and they distribute it out to you. We learned so much from it. It just happened to be a neighbor. And that has also been another source of maybe that's another area we focus on. Like, we have grocery stores, restaurants, and now distributors themselves seem to be a really, really viable source, because you're, again, dropping off a lot of stuff to one place. So we met him, and he started taking a lot from us, a lot of product from us. And we, like, from the start of our grow, working with him, we filled up that room in Lamont instantly. And we realized we've hit our wall here, and they wanted more. We needed to move. So we're and one of the problems with moving a farm, or there's so many different problems with it, is that we have dialed in our Lamont location. We had dialed in our farm with the climate. So we understand the temperature and the humidity, all these factors that go into growing a solid product. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. But then we moved into a warehouse, which is 6,000 square foot in comparison to, like, we were growing in maybe 1,000, 1,200 square feet, something like that, to 6,000. You starting run into, like, you have a climate, and then you have climates in that climate, because it's just one wide room, and you build shelving and stuff, and there's so many different climates in there. So it got really challenging. Is that we as we moved to a new space, so we had to figure out all these climate control issues. We had all kinds of new scaling issues in this new warehouse. I could talk deep about that, but our focus is kind of, we moved away from home delivery. We started primarily focused on distribution, restaurants, and grocery stores today.
And even though it sounds like you had to kind of move away from that direct to consumer, like deliveries and drop-offs, and like you said, boots on the ground, and actually, like, face to face with the end user, learning from them, seeing how they like the product, seeing what were some of the things that you guys learned or took away from that? Like, I'm guessing a lot of it was just sort of, deep understanding of, like, the target audience, who's using the product, what do they think about it, how interested are they in, the science of it, or what's the balance of the right messaging, the right price. I mean, the list goes on and on. What were some of the things that, even though you moved away from that part of the business, that I'm guessing a lot of those things you had to learn from going through that to get to the next, that next phase. What was it, from what you remember, what were some of those, things you learned, the takeaways?
Yeah. So this was really hard for me. Like I mentioned, I was very introverted by nature, so it was hard for me to even just to talk to people about this product. And when I did talk about it, I wouldn't shut up about it. As you notice, I talk very quick a lot when I get excited about talking about this, because I do enjoy it. So I had to kind of observe myself and people's reactions when I would give you. Farmers markets are fantastic for learning your sales pitch. It was so good, because at first I would go really wide, just like, here's all the thing about microgreens, and this poor person would just stand there as I'm just vomiting words at them, just nonstop. It was so much content, because of, like, this microgreen is great for this nutrition, and this, and like, this is another thing about, here's the logistic in the produce chain. This is our packaging is made of corn and not plastic, and we just all these, just so much, and a lot of they're really receptive to it. And I think the energy that I was putting out, because I genuinely I love what we do. That worked, but the messaging is, I think that they probably were receptive to the energy and not so much of, like, what I was actually providing them content wise. So what I started realizing is, like, I really, really needed to simplify this pitch, because especially as we scale the business, I cannot be hands-on. I cannot be the person, the boots on the ground at farmers markets all the time. I needed to be able to set this up for somebody else to take over. I still do a lot of the farmers markets today, but I needed to build like that prototype for somebody else to pick it up and go. And it needed to be simple because I needed to be able to like hire somebody for it and it to make sense. And you don't need to be an expert in microgreens to be able to sell microgreens. You shouldn't be. You just need to kind of know the highlights of it. So kind of like what I'm realizing is like you have that profile of that customer. What do they actually care about? Like they're just the higher level things. And you go from there. So what I do today is instead of word vomiting and being super excited, I go, okay, there's 3 things that I like to talk about. This is typically what works and what people care about. Some people, they're astonished. Like the fact like eating 1 ounce is like eating 3 to 6 pounds of microgreens. Great line, just simple. And I don't talk about, like I mentioned before, there's the protein and the carbs and stuff. Forget it. Just keep it simple. If they ask the questions, that's where we can go deeper into it. I have what we call our Bible, because there are, which is just, that's where I put my word vomit. I just threw it somewhere else. So, because there are people that are going to come and go, what about this? What about this? There are the people the nutrition's becoming a bigger topic, and it's so deep and technical that I wanted to make sure that the information was there somewhere. But biggest takeaway for me, and is keep it simple. Keep it really, really simple and high level, but have the depth kind of hiding behind the curtain to make sure it's available to your team, to yourself. And I think the like long term, the skill sets that we developed at Farmers Market and just the iteration of this pitch. I have said the same thing over and over. I A/B tested myself this pitch over and over and over again. Not like it wasn't scientific at all. Just pure observation. And I think what we can do is take that, continue it at farmers markets, but really as we expand into grocery stores and we now are scaling, so we're trying to get larger grocery store chains. We're going to have to do some form of marketing at those chains, either in-store demos or marketing online, like through meta ads or something. That it's that same pitch, just in a different form. So there's that side of the business. Is that there's nutrition is when we're talking about people are buying things, it's typically for nutrition. And then there's the culinary side of things that I can get into as well, which is I'm still kind of developing that pitch today. Is you meet chefs, like what do they care about? It's definitely not new. They care about nutrition for sure, but that's not their primary focus. They're going to care about, like you mentioned, garnishing, the flavors, the visual presentation of these things. Like why would they even use this stuff? Yeah, it's a very different world. So you have to kind of have these 2 different profiles of customers. So iteration was the big thing for me. I had to fail a lot to to learn what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that was another example of starting the business, growing the business, wearing different hats. At some point, you put on that sales and marketing hat where you kind of learn a lot of sales and marketing in the beginning is just market research. You're just testing what it is that people care about. And I could like nerd out on this and talk about this topic for hours, trying to figure out, what is the differentiator, for a product or your company. And so often I think companies think their differentiator is one thing. And while it might be a differentiator, if you're looking at your competitors or you're looking at the market, if it's not, one of the really high things on the list for your audience of the thing that they care about, it probably doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time talking about it. It's technically a differentiator, but it's the perfect intersection of, like you said, the stuff that your audience cares about and the things that, you can deliver on that might make you different or just make the story unique and kind of stand out. Like that's the sweet spot. But sounds like you kind of learned firsthand that it's not like you can disappear for a week and, have a whiteboard and come out at the end of the week and be like, okay, we figured it out. Like it takes an awful lot of testing. And that's where sales and marketing, I think, is really similar, because you go through that same kind of test and learn process to kind of get there. And actually sometimes you don't even almost never, I think you could probably attest to this. Like there's never a light bulb moment. You're like, okay, we figured it out. Like this is a constant ongoing iterative thing that really, never ends. And I think from my experience, like the companies that sort of embrace that are the ones that ultimately really, really successful when it comes to figuring out your audience, figuring out the message, figuring out, how to be more efficient, when you have somebody's attention for a short amount of time, and then you figure out that, and then you can kind of start to look at the different audiences that you have, because you already brought it up, like the culinary, opportunities that you had. And I'm assuming you just mean like that, like restaurants and things like that, right? Where you're
Yes,
selling
chefs.
to chefs. Yeah. Yeah. I actually interviewed another founder of a business here in Chicago. And they do mushrooms, and they just have a big mushroom, growing operation. And a big part of their business is selling to chefs. A lot of the big restaurants in Chicago that, love to, have different varieties of mushrooms that are, maybe a little bit less common or perfectly complement, a dish. But man, that is so different than trying to sell through, retail or, direct. They're all so different. And you have to kind of figure out what's the, the commonality that kind of runs throughout. That's kind of the, more of the story or the brand of what, kind of what's in the DNA of the company. But but then once it gets to all the messaging, it's never a clean process. So it sounds like you guys figured that out, and you were thinking about it the right way and testing it and probably still figuring it out, right?
Every day. Every day. That's what makes this business kind of, honestly, I imagine any business is so fun, is that I'm going to sit here on my computer right where I'm sitting right now and code. I could do that for 12 hours a day, but I also need to go shovel some compost later. Like you get a wide mixture of these two different skill sets. And then later today, I have a sales meeting. It's just, your day to day is just all over the place. It's exciting. It's fun. You're learning as you go the entire time. You're iterating as you go the entire time. I'm a firm believer that quantity leads to quality. To your point of the whiteboard, like walk into a back room and get a whiteboard, unless you have some experience with these things. My belief is that it'll probably get you somewhere, but it's not going to lead you to the final iteration. Kind of like AI, where AI will get you 80% of the way there. The last 20% is where the most magic happens, and that's going to require that human input today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I realize this next question is probably a real mix of sales and marketing. But when it came time to just put a lot of structure around things, where maybe you did have like a period of time where you're whiteboarding, okay, here's the plan, here's kind of like the roadmap, here's what we're gonna go try to do. Okay, we need a website, we need marketing materials, maybe you're doing I don't know, content marketing on social. Like what were some of the challenges that you ran into? I imagine first and foremost is just trying to juggle it all and just try to get it all done and figure it all out. And just how do you prioritize it, and how do you just literally figure out the process to execute it? But were there other challenges you guys ran into just kind of putting all those pieces together?
Yes. So many. Not all of them are figured out. So the major ones were operational. A lot of them. So I kind of had a general. And today, it's just still like you mentioned. I think it requires a lot of iteration and planning. I have like a general idea of sales and marketing in terms of how I want to communicate or get in front of the right customers. In the past, I would do a lot of like Facebook groups, and I also would put out ads out there. I probably was very unsuccessful with the Facebook ads. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did my best. I'm just trial and error kind of thing. It had some Google Analytics. It did provide some you're doing okay, but I don't even think I set up my Google Analytics account right. So it was just, there was a little bit of that. It helped us bring what we were a D2C model initially. So a lot of it was getting subscribers and those kind of things. So that's where I was more, when it was D2C, I spent a lot more time with the marketing side of things, social media and those kind of platforms. I still work on social media platforms today, in that, but my view on these things are a little bit different. Now living in a more B2B world, the way I think about Instagram today, right or wrong, is just where I'm at in my development. Is I want my Instagram to be like these are the pretty pictures of people we work with that used our product. I love that. My headspace is a lot on the culinary side of things because it's easier to meet chefs today. So I like to have like, here's the pictures. This is the work they made. This is our product on top of it. It looks great.
Yeah.
So I'm developing an Instagram for that reason alone. And then what I'm doing is that now that we have this some credibility, I can message chef like, hey, can I meet you? And just hope for the best. I'm just shooting cold messages out, or I'll shoot messages to restaurants and businesses, cold DMs, or I'll email them where I can and see where that takes me. So that's a little bit of my strategy today. Probably needs some refining and work, but it's honestly worked for us. People kind of see the pictures, and it's developed a little bit of a network for us because you meet one chef, and that chef leads doors to other chefs too. So it's a little bit of it has to be local too. So you kind of have this a little bit limitation on who you can advertise to. Otherwise, I will literally go boots on the ground. I'm going to drive to Chicago or some area, and I'm going to walk into a kitchen and with greens and go, check us out, and hope I don't make anyone mad for just walking into the kitchen. People love it. I was really surprised. I was really you might have, when you're talking to the mushroom people, they do the same thing. I was inspired from them. I realized that like, oh, they just walk into the fire. Great. Let's do that. And I met so many people that way. The sales don't always happen immediately. It takes some development. Their chefs are so busy. They're so busy. So you'll meet them, things go great. You're like, this is happening, and then it's like 6 months later, and that's maybe when the deal is going to take place. So it's such a different excuse me, pipeline from like the D2C that we were kind of trained to have. Like, this B2B world is so different. In terms of scaling, though, scaling has happened as really everything I do is when problems arise. From the start, I mentioned awful planner. Like, it just this is not our strength. We are like, just go at it and see what happens. I will try almost anything and just see if it works for us or not, like from the business lines. And we've tried a lot of things. We've failed at a lot of things, and we grew from that. So I think one of the biggest things that we grew from is, I mentioned we just got this warehouse. It's about 6 months back in October. So we had moved from our Lamont location, and moving a farm was really hard, but we also made a few changes in that move too. We moved from smaller location to a much larger. We decided it's time for upgrades, meaning before I had 8-9 foot ceilings. So we're a vertical farm, right? So you have your shelf, and you have growing on each shelf, you have plants growing. So you are limited by this constraint of height. But we're a vertical farm. Let's go up. Let's do more. So we decided to get 12 feet shelves instead. The difference is, when you are growing something that is 6 feet off the ground, you can see it. Where's my broccoli? It's right there. I know where it is. But when you're growing on 12 feet shelves, where's my broccoli? I have no idea. We run into this new operational situation of, where the heck is everything? You have these shelves are so high. How do you get up there? That was a hard thing. When we first moved here, I had to climb a ladder because I didn't want my team to have to do that. So we hit all kinds of new constraints just to handle that problem. We have we're USDA GAP certified facility. A lot of what that means is that we have certain safety procedures that we have to follow. And we have requirements that we have to follow. So as an example, if a grocery store calls me and go like, there are people getting sick, I have to know what lot number we gave. So like, I grow X amount of broccoli. This is this lot, and you give it to them. I have to know what lot number it is on our side. So we have lots. We have internal lots, and we have seed and soil lots, like the inputs that go into it. So you have one step forward, one step back. But who else received that lot number? You have to have that kind of traceability. So you're making phone calls like, throw away the broccoli. It's no good. Whatever happens, right? Fortunately, in this world, we grow inside, so we don't deal with a lot of these things. But it's still like a basic requirement. So the building up that process naturally happened where we have to you have to know from the start, when you plant something, so you have your input, seed, soil, from the start, where it is on the shelf, you harvest it, and where it goes after. As you scale, that becomes a much, much harder problem. It's really easy to just pen and paper it in the beginning, but as you mature, it's like, this is a lot of stuff. It was a lot of stuff. And then you'll grow, basil. Basil grows for in our world about 4 weeks. You'll have 2 different lots of basil at the same time. We need to harvest 2 different lots of basil. Who's getting what goes where? Where do you pull it from? Where the heck? We had all these different challenges. So operationally, I had to really AI really helped me with this. I had to build an app. I had become a full stack developer to be able to solve this problem. So I had to build a database. I had to build the APIs to connect the database. We had to build a front end web app so the team can access it and make sure it's secure. I don't know anything about security. But we had to build, like, we obviously outlined the entire process of planting in the shelves, and there's so many different steps in between. You have 40 different types of plants. They all have different systems and processes the entire time too. It's similar, but they're different. You have to grow these things in a different way. So you have to, like, as you scale, you have all these problems of, like, broccoli goes light today, but basil doesn't. Like, you don't put them on the shelves. You still need them to kind of develop and grow before you do that. There's just so many layers of systems that you have to build up. So having an app to tell us, like, broccoli's ready, time to put it on the shelf, take it from where it was to put it on a certain shelf, or we have to harvest our orders today, pull this from that shelf and harvest this many. I wanted to build a system like that, and we have it today. In addition, we had, I mentioned we grow so many different varieties of things. You don't have to, many farms don't, but to keep costs low, I don't want to water anything. I don't want to water myself. It's so painful to do so. Many farms do, but what I prefer to do is we automated our entire shelves. Automation means you have to water it and lighting schedule. And so many different plants have different lighting schedules. I'll grow beets. Beets, lights on 24 hours a day, loves it. Many varieties do not love it, or for a variety of reasons, we don't want those plants to get that. Peas, for example, I actually don't want to give them light for about 2 days when they're on the shelf. I want them to grow in pure darkness because they will stretch a little bit taller, so that they you can actually harvest them later on. Otherwise, if you give them light, they're like this tall. And, like, how do you even cut that with a knife? So long story short is that there are so many different plants and so many different environments that those plants need for, like, the beets don't want as much water. Peas want water every 10 minutes. Little things like that. So, like, building a full app was almost like a necessity to be able to automate the entire farm, to tell the operations what to do. On a day-to-day basis. And when before that, we had this humongous mental burden. It was so, like, I couldn't even think about doing anything else for sales and marketing, because I was just like, I was so in the weeds of the operations of the farm. But today we have, like, we've iterated the app multiple times. I'm on version 3 of the app, is what I'm working on right now as we refine that process. It's very fortunate, as I have, for better or worse, I have beta test users, which is our entire team, including myself, to trial out the app. Like, I break stuff constantly because this is not what I was trained to do. I'm learning these skills in real time. So we got the app going. Got beta testers. We've iterated on the app multiple times. That was the biggest thing that we had to solve for at scale, because we accidentally went from, like, it's just a visual problem where I can see broccoli, now I can't. Like, that basic thing made it go, we have a huge problem here. I didn't realize it at the time. But that was the biggest problem to solve, and I work on it every single day, like every day. There hasn't been a day off in 5 years of this farm. But I love coding. So I was fortunate that at least I like doing what I'm struggling to get through.
No, that's a super interesting part of the story. Like, I would have never expected, sort of this, like, high tech component of the business, but as you explained it totally makes sense that it's like a necessary part of growing and scaling when there ends up being complexity. You wouldn't expect that kind of a complexity just from the outside looking in, but yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you about where you guys are at today, with kind of like the mix of maybe not necessarily sales, but how much of your time and attention is on growing, the retail side of the business, the culinary side of the business. I'm guessing the direct, is like a very small, maybe part of what you do, and maybe that's just for like a little bit of market research, maybe. But what's the kind of the percentage breakdown of where you're spending most of your time, or, which parts of the
Yeah.
business you're trying to grow?
Yeah. So I think of things from like I'm going to say retail. I don't know if that's the right word, but like when I say retail, that's going to mean someone buying something for like
Yep.
nutrition at home kind of thing. And then I'm going to say the wholesale business, which is going to be more culinary and those kind of things.
Sure.
So I think I spend a lot more time on the culinary side of things today. I'm going to call it an 80-20 split. It might not be fair all the time. It's going to vary by week, but it's probably somewhere in that range. There's good reason for it. So with the retail side of things, I was very fortunate to partner up with, we did the home deliveries. I didn't just go, you guys are done, I'm not dropping off microgreens to you. There are people that we worked with, they're dealing with cancer. Like when we shared our story out, you meet a certain clientele. I go, hey, we got into this because we got cancer. That's going to inspire somebody who's dealing with, or some who has cancer, or somebody who knows someone who has cancer. You work with a lot of people. That was we wanted to make sure we continued that, but we also hit this wall where it was just too hard. We were doing too many things. So I was very, very fortunate to find a partner that does home local deliveries in a similar manner, called it's a little farm in the area called Cockadoodle, that they had their own eggs, but they also sourced local foods only. They actually came from the world of cancer as well. One of the owners actually had cancer, and that's how they stumbled into the different. They're solving a different problem, but stumbled into this local foods health thing, just like we did. I was so fortunate to have met them, because it enabled me, like, I have a way to solve this problem, so our customers continue to get it. Yes, do we make less money, but I'm doing one drop off to one place, and logistically it becomes so much easier. When we had 200 different stops, it was so hard before. So it was a neat solve to that problem, because their margins were much better. They're selling eggs, they're selling meat, they're doing all the kind of things. Produce is just a tight margin thing. So that was a nice solve for there. But then on the retail side of things, I mentioned we're really focused on grocery stores. Grocery stores are developed. There are independent grocery stores out there, but like when we're in a much larger facility, where my headspace is at is I want to work with much larger customers. We're capable of doing this now. So I in that world, these are large organizations. They move slower. That's the nature of it. So like I have a lot of like conversation. You have to keep your CRM up to date. I have so many different conversations taking place. I connect with them on a regular cadence with them. But to get these things to the maturity, to the state where you can actually work together all the time, takes a very, very long time. But I moved to this new space. Our rent is way up. We scale. We have way more electricity bills way up because we got better lights and this that. We need to make money, so we're talking about cash flow here. That's where the culinary side makes a lot more sense. I can go and go to a chef and word vomit like I do, just like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. I could just do that every single day if I wanted to, assuming I drop off samples. It allows me to just get out there. So it's a lot easier to create opportunity on that side, and that's why a lot of my focus is in that area. So like I come from this beginnings of nutrition, but I see myself really spending a lot of time with chefs on the culinary side of things, just because it's the fastest way to get cash flow. And then there's also in the same regard, we have the distributor business as well. It's a similar problem with or a similar situation with chefs in that they work with chefs. So you're in that similar profile of a customer. Maybe it's a little bit different than what the chef might be, but I can go like, samples, here you go, let's drop it off to them and just meet people. And you meet so many people that way so much faster. Just boots on the ground, I'll just walk in. I'm just going to drive there, tons of samples in my car, and I'm just going to go do it. I find that it's probably one of the most effective way to kind of grow the business. I still, when I'm at home, I'm still outreaching over, like I mentioned, I'm DMing chefs and restaurants. I'm emailing them. I email I probably so many people, so many voices. I'm hoping that they'll get back to me at some point. I think cold DMing people, or cold emailing people is a art. To get their attention is so much harder these days. I could be doing cold outreach or phone today. I probably should be doing a little bit more of it. It's tough where like I'm trying to you can do so much more in a shorter period of time if you're just emailing boom 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 boom. I can have AI help me with these things. It's something I'm decently developed with to help me with finding who the right profile customer is, and sending out a lot of emails all kind of one go, and making sure I keep in contact with those emails. Much harder problem solve with phone calls, but I also need time to develop. Like, this farm is the operations side of things. That the technology is on me. So I that's where I have room for improvements, where I don't make phone calls as much as I probably should. Maybe it's the introverted nature of me too, and I just want to send text out. I don't know, but
no,
that's
I'm right. I'm right there with you. I am the sort of classic, introvert that was really interested in starting a business, being entrepreneurial. Which you would think the introvert would be like, no, I want the 9 to 5 where I can go and just kind of hide away at my desk and have a role and be a part of it, be part of like the big team. But going back to what you were talking about, sounds like the direct to consumer and then probably, the marketing and sales to chefs are probably a little bit similar in that you're, it's one-to-one. It's, you could be emailing them, talking to them. You could be doing more of like, potentially just like a sales pitch for a product. And technically they are both kind of the end user, a little bit different, obviously, for chefs. They're making the food, not eating it, but still that's similar. But then the wholesale and distributor side of the business, I mean, that's interesting to me because I come from predominantly B2B background on the marketing side. So a lot of my clients and companies I've worked with have been B2B, but almost every, well, not every, but a lot of B2B companies still have a B2C component, or it's B2C to B. I think I flipped that around, B2B to C. And so, it gets kind of like complicated because it's a lot of the same basic marketing principles of figuring out the message, figuring out, is there automation that you could do, whether it's emails or ads or whatever else it might be. Sometimes I feel like that's easier to figure out on the consumer side, but then you start thinking about the B2B side. It's like, okay, that's a lot more complexity. And yes, you are still like marketing to real people. There are individuals and people within the company that you're still marketing to a person, but it's probably a little bit more figuring out, how do you tailor the message for this specific audience or for this specific company, or what's, the pitch deck look like, or it's, like you said, 6 month and you're just sort of waiting for them to go through the process. Like, okay, what are the other touch points and the marketing, and maybe there is some automation there, but those are the problems. I just find it super interesting when you have a lot of the different audiences, and I mean, the same basic marketing principles are the same across the board, but they just end up being drastically different in terms of just like the execution. So to me, that's an interesting problem. And I'm guessing it sounds like you kind of, get that and embrace it, and you kind of have to, right? When you have these different audiences, right?
Yeah, you don't really have much of a choice, even on the culinary side. So I mentioned we were fortunate enough to go through the iteration of developing that profile, a customer on the D2C side, which is super helpful, and it's just a great skill set to just learn just how to think about those things.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of refining that on the B2B side, because there are, even in that bucket, maybe it's a smaller audience, but there are many different kinds of chefs. Some are very highly technical, like the stem needs to be this big and we need to have this size leaf, and it gets very in the weeds. And then it'll be a spectrum of like very technical to this is a garnish, and trying to like identify who that chef is and how you're marketing him is challenging. And the same thing happens with the distribution side, is that the technical side of things doesn't really exist so much. People oftentimes don't even know how to take care of the leafy greens. They're more sensitive. It's like meat. You can just throw it in the freezer. Who cares? It'll be fine. But you have my basil touching like some cold meat, and it's going to die. Like there's the different levels of sophistication at every step of the chain, and it's I'm still learning today, like how to develop these profiles, how many of them are there, and best ways to interact with all of them. It's it's definitely challenging. There's a lot of I was fortunate to meet a lot of chefs, and I got my first customer that cared about. Like I mentioned before, all of our packaging, it's made of corn. It's really cool. Looks like plastic. Nobody cares about it. The D2C side really cared about it, and it's a core value for me. This is part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just I believe in it. It's very expensive, but I believe in it. I had my first customer that go like, product's pretty good, but I hate the plastic. I'm like, let me tell you, it was the first time I landed the sales for me, but I do think that that's also a growing profile of the customer that's happening too. I haven't had enough opportunities to connect with chefs as much as I would like, especially recently. I've been so siloed in our warehouse, just developing it, like building the app and just the farm and such. But I'm kind of opening up to the world a little bit, and I'm going out there and meeting chefs from offices and refining that skill a little bit more. But yeah, it's so hard. There's so many different profiles of people.
Yeah.
And where do you meet these different profiles? Where do these chefs hang out? Do they hang out somewhere in particular, or am I always going to be boots on the ground and have this kind of setup?
Yeah.
The way I'm framing it and thinking about it is that realistically, worst case scenario, I'm going to die at some point. I need to have somebody who could take this off of my plate. I love what I do, but this is not forever.
Yeah.
So like I need to, in the same way that we handle this for farmers markets, is that we've set up a structure for it. I'm kind of learning how to do that today for the B2B side of these things. I have some ideas, but I don't think we've refined that art as much as I would like.
Yeah.
So it's coming together, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and just like, common theme, a lot of what we talked about, it's constantly iterative. Like when it comes to, buyer profiles or customer personas or whatever you want to call it, there's the constant fear of just having too few or too many. Like you can't just have one, like, because not all your customers are the same. So usually when you for sure have like some different audiences that you're trying to target, you'll need a couple, but like you can't have too many. And also how detailed you get in defining them is also sometimes tricky because you don't want to be too narrow or too broad. And so yeah, that's like another added to the list of the stuff that's never really done, because I've had clients who will say, okay, we spent a lot of time figuring out our messaging, figuring out our, ideal customer personas. And it's like, we're done. Now we can just go execute. And it's like, well, we're definitely not done, because every couple months you should be like re-looking at that. And if you're not able to like point to certain things that are like, oh, that doesn't feel right anymore, or maybe this persona isn't needed and then maybe a different one is, like, if you're not noticing that stuff, to me, sometimes that means that, you're not pulling enough, learnings out of that scrappy marketing and talking to customers. And that's a huge thing for me, like with clients, is like just talking to customers, getting on the phone with them, even if as the introvert who never likes to do that either, like just sometimes calling up a customer and saying, hey, this is cool if I just ask you a few questions. And they might be totally caught off guard, but like a lot of my clients, I push them because like those are when like the really great insights come out that help you with that process. Just a couple more quick questions for you. I know we're right about a time. I want to be respectful of your time here on this again, very, very nice Friday. Kind of looking forward, and you already talked about this a little bit, but like looking forward, what are the things with the business that you're most excited about, opportunities, the stuff that you look a little bit farther forward? You just talked about implementing a lot of structure and a lot more process and a lot more, probably the things that will help you guys grow. But what are you just most excited about these days?
Oh, there's so much to unpack there. I really love building the operations of the business to a fault. I love like I mentioned the app. I love building that. I love refining that process. I'm a big I like to listen to a lot of historical figures in business, and like Rockefeller and such, and what they cared about, what made them successful. And you have this common theme in that it's cost. Is like you have like business is often seasonal, cyclical is the word, where you'll have periods of great bursts and then periods of downturn and such. But what remains consistent throughout the entire time is the cost on the business. So I love thinking about it from that lens of like where our opportunity is. So a lot of it is just like developing the app and making sure that we are very efficient throughout the entire period. Like it's almost a similar pipeline in marketing. You have multiple touch points that you can almost A/B test a journey. You could do the same thing with operations as well. And like if we try this strategy, what works? We try this, our yields can improve and so on. And we're doing like there's so much testing in this business just because you'll have a new seed lot like broccoli. I have broccoli for 3 months and I get a new seed lot of broccoli. You have to do testing on it. Is it better, worse? Do you have problems, this and that? And you have to A/B test it at all times throughout the entire process. So I love building the app and making sure the operations side is getting better over time. As our cash flow improves with the business over time, like what things I really, really want to get into as well, things that really excite me is I'm working on building like kind of like an independent. We don't have dependency issues, and what I mean by that is there's some vertical integration there. So I have to get seeds from somewhere. It'd be cool to be a seed farmer. It's this like unspoken thing that nobody really knows about, but there's a huge seed market, and it's really microgreens farm isn't that uncommon of a theme, and it's not nobody really knows about it, hears about it, but there's usually one or two in every major city. We have 3 in Chicago, I think I could think of. There's way more, but the 3 larger players, I think. So seeds are becoming more of a constraint too, and then over time seeds will be developed to get better at these kind of things, like genetic mutations of these things. It naturally happens in nature, right? So I was thinking about that's one area I want to get into. We use a lot of dirt. I use a lot of dirt. This is not something we just grow on of water. You really can't. So what things I'm working on is we have a lot of waste. I have tons and tons of waste of microgreen compost is what we call it. So as you have a soil and you have a plant on top, you cut the plant off, but you have like these roots and soil underneath. I have a humongous pile of compost in the back. And what I really want to do is build a system to reuse that soil as well. I wanted to, I did some research on being energy independent. It is so hard. I was thinking like solar and wind. This is great. This is the future. Probably in some fashion it is, but realistically, you look at it, it's like I could not power the farm on solar if I wanted to today. And not only we have a problem of Chicago, the solar panels are just not energy efficient enough, and I just, quite frankly, I just can't afford it. Yeah. So like that's one I would love to create independency of like what our inputs in. I think that's I don't know. It just seems really exciting for me. And another thing on the sales and marketing side of things, I'm absolutely excited about we're talking about being introverted and this and that, but yet we're having a great conversation on this topic alone. Like you have to have there's iteration of developing yourself too, and I've noticed how we have developed as people ourselves. We're much better at meeting and networking and things like that. We're really refining that side of things, and it's starting to open doors for us quite a bit. We're meeting so many of the right people, I think, and there's a lot of luck happening where we're getting involved with a lot of cool new projects. So I'm excited to kind of see how we develop and how the business kind of develops in that same way, because it's I think we're going to nail the B2B sales side of things as long as we don't quit. We will it'll all work out at some point.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's great. And it totally makes sense. Everything you're talking about felt like it fit within the theme of just looking at a total where the business fits in the circular kind of economy or sustainability, or every aspect of bringing that product to market. What are the sort of related sort of tangential things that could be, a standalone thing or part of the business. And just, everything you said also fits totally within everything you talked about earlier on in terms of just the vision and the mission and how it all started. So it totally makes sense. You'd be, exploring that stuff in the future. That sounds cool. Last question for you. And then I'll let you go. And this has nothing to do with marketing or running a business or microgreens or any of that. But I am curious. I always ask founders of businesses and entrepreneurs when you're not working, which I know probably feels like that's like that's like never, right? But like when you do have time, or you are kind of forcing yourself to kind of take a step back, kind of turn off your brain a little bit, get away from the business, rest, recharge, whatever you want to call it. What do you do for just kind of stepping away and kind of clearing your mind a little bit? You have, and again, sometimes like, I mean, I have like a couple of businesses I'm involved in. I have 2 little kids, so I feel like I never have time, but it is something I'm super interested in, of like how other people are doing it when they get a chance. So what does that look like for you?
So I'm fortunate that a lot of my interests overlap quite a bit. I don't do almost anything outside of the farm today. So,
Yeah.
but what I would love to go back to is prior to the farm, because you're building living products. You're stuck here all the time.
Yeah.
Is that we used to travel a lot. It used to just to get away. And I would still work on the farm as I'm traveling. Mostly, I love to read about business. I love to learn about like historical figures, what they did in business. It's just, fortunately, those topics overlap quite a bit for me. But another thing that my wife and I, unfortunately, I think it's so cool that I get to work. It's often bad advice to work with family, but I think that it's also bad advice to say that, because if you want to be like, a part of like happiness is being with the people you want to be with, right? And like we're all stuck in this one room working together. Like, yeah, there's explosives sometimes, and there's a little bit of like this, but it's great. Like, even outside of work, we spend all of our time together. Yep. So a lot of the things that as we've which also aligns with the business, that we'll go to Chicago and we'll just kind of go shopping and things like that. But we always have our date nights, and we're going to go visit one of the restaurants that we work with too. So it's aligned. We learn a little bit of the culinary side. We go to all these really, really cool restaurants in Chicago. It's the places I would have never ventured into. But yeah, I guess reading is a big thing for me. I really would love to travel a lot more than I do. My family's from Poland. I got to take, my wife's never been to Poland. I got to go there at some point again. We love to go to, like, my family's got a house in Michigan that is right by where all the fruits are from, and it's the best. You have, we're on a lake, so you can, kayak and pontoon and all those things. Just be on the water is great. And then you have a blueberry field, like literally in visual distance from the farm as well, that you can just go pick blueberries, or get blueberries or peaches or cherries. It's the best, but we just bandwidth constraints. Yep,
you got to find the time, and luckily, summer is upon us here in Chicago, so more of that great outdoor stuff is hopefully will be here soon. Now that I say that, it's probably gonna like snow or something. But
it was 35 today.
Yeah.
So it's May.
Yep, for sure. Well, Chris, I really appreciate it. I know this was probably a little bit longer, and compared to some of the other calls you've done like this, but yeah, it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and appreciate it. And let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Dan. Thanks for letting me rant about microgreens all day. I can talk too much about it. I never get tired of it.
All right. Well, maybe there'll be a part 2 when you guys figure out all of that other stuff that you talked about of where you're taking the business. So definitely appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week. And maybe we'll talk soon.
You too, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
See ya.